So the SEC Chair Paul Atkins says that Bitcoin and crypto regulation by enforcement is over. And David Sachs, the AI and crypto czar, is saying that stablecoin legislation is about to pass the Senate and Bitcoin just hit a new all-time high. And so the Senate passed the genius stablecoin bill with 60 plus votes and only 29 said no. And this has to deal with stablecoin regulation in the United States. So earlier today, Bitcoin did touch a new all-time high, although it's just teetering right now at about $108,000. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, will we see Bitcoin break to the upside, or will we see Bitcoin consolidate under the all-time high for another few weeks? So in this video, we have to talk about what's about to happen in the crypto markets. We're looking at the Bitcoin dominance price chart. We're also comparing it to Total 2, which is every single altcoin other than Bitcoin. And a whale opened up a $1 billion long on Bitcoin, telling us that they know something that the average person does not. So if you guys like crypto, if you like making money, comment 777. If you're feeling blessed, if you're feeling bullish, and if you're going to become the first millionaire in your family tree, confirm it by tapping the subscribe button. Let's run it. All right, bull runners, welcome back to the channel. So today is a nice day for a recovery in the altcoin market with Bitcoin breaking out, and we're still doing an XRP giveaway. So enter in, go follow us on Twitter or X at BullRunnersHQ. Find the pin post and then just simply like the pin post, retweet it, comment XRP on the post, and make sure you're subscribed to our daily video newsletter because that's where we're going to announce the winners. And you just click the button, put in your best email address. You also get our free book. It's about 100 pages. You should be able to read it in a day or less. Unless you struggle to read like me, maybe it'll take you a week. But nonetheless, I know you guys are going to get massive value out of that book. So even if you don't win XRP, then go through that book, take action on the other side, and get access to Altcoin Pro University as well too, because the crypto market is just heating up right now, and Bitcoin is the main mover. If we see Bitcoin break out to a new all-time high, then altcoins are going to follow, and I'm going to get into the others chart in Total 2 by the end of this video. So just looking at Bitcoin right now, if we zoom out to the 4-hour chart, we can see that the relative strength index is at 64 and the stochastic RSI is at 83 and 86 for the K line and the D line. We are in overbought conditions on the stochastic RSI. However, that doesn't mean that Bitcoin's going to pull back right away, because we could see Bitcoin consolidate for a period of time while the stochastic RSI comes down, and Bitcoin could just hold a tight range right here at the high pretty much. For example, if you guys see what happened back here on the 6th of May when Bitcoin broke upwards of $97,000, it pretty much retested this high right here and then just held this tight range for this bull flag, which is pretty much a cup and handle formation. And if you look at the stochastic RSI, we were all the way up here in overbought conditions, but we stayed above 80 for an extended period of time, and Bitcoin broke to the upside. So just because we're in overbought conditions doesn't mean that the stochastic RSI is going to come down right away. Eventually it will, but a breakout to the upside could actually happen in the meantime while the stochastic RSI stays above 80. Eventually we will see it reset. So in my opinion, I do not like to buy something when it's in overbought conditions, even if it's breaking out, because I don't chase pumps. You know, what I do is I have macro patience, unless I'm day trading, obviously, then I'm going to be on a more micro time frame, like the 5 minutes or the 15 minutes or the 30-minute chart, rather than the 4-hour or the day-to-day chart. Like on the 4-hour or the day-to-day, this would be more macro long-term spot positions for me. So I don't accumulate when we're up at these levels. But here's some examples of some trades that I made today for Bitcoin, actually shorting the market and longing the market. For example, this one right here, the profit and loss was $1,135. Where I longed Bitcoin, this one right here for XRP was actually a sell. I lost $151. This one for XRP was a sell. I made $449. This one right here for XRP was a long. I made $2,900. This one right here, I shorted XRP, made $4,700. This one right here for XRP made $999. This one right here for Bitcoin was a long, made $354. This one right here made $8,900 for Bitcoin. This one right here, $118. $569. And if you guys want to learn how this is possible and you want to learn how to trade, then get started with Altcoin Pro University. Go through the Technical Analysis Essentials course right here. And it teaches you how to get your foot in the door so you can understand technical analysis, having the right mindset, and everything that you guys need to know to be able to read charts, candlesticks, moving averages, different indicators like the RSI, Bollinger Bands, etc., and then the 4 horsemen of technical analysis. So we're going to see what happens with Bitcoin over the next few hours. And if we see something like this where Bitcoin holds up here at the all-time high and then starts to break to the upside, if this takes place, then the stochastic RSI would just stay above 80 for an extended period of time, and the relative strength index would most likely breach above 70, similar to what happened right here on the 8th of May with the RSI breaching all the way up here. And as you can see right here, by the 8th of May, the price chart was putting in higher highs, whereas the relative strength index started putting in lower highs, which is a bearish divergence. Also, the stochastic RSI formed a bearish cross right here on the 8th of May at the bottom of the screen and then reset all the way down below 20, while the price chart continuously put in higher highs and higher lows until we saw this sell-off right here from the 12th of May to the 13th of May of about 5%. And so this is how bearish divergences tend to play out is, for example, if we get a move up for Bitcoin to like $110,000 to $120,000, depending on how high Bitcoin goes, if we see a breakout, then on that initial breakout, the RSI moves upwards of 70, 80, potentially even 90. And then on that first little pullback up here, we see the RSI pull back and then bounce. And then the RSI starts to form lower highs and lower lows. While the price chart coils up here, the RSI starts to reset. Same thing with the stochastic RSI. On that breakout, we see the K line, the D line get closer to 100. And then on that first initial pullback, we see the RSI, the stochastic RSI come down. And so what happens there is a lot of people start to buy that breakout and they buy all the way up to the next peak. And then when the pullback takes place, they panic, they freak out because then they see that they're down 5 or 10%, depending on how steep that pullback is after the breakout, because they don't watch these key indicators. When the smart people are waiting for the stochastic RSI and the relative strength index to reset after being in overbought conditions. Because as you can see right here on this pullback for Bitcoin on the 12th of May, the K line, the D line on the stochastic RSI were all the way down here below 2 after spending a couple of days down here below 20. You could have accumulated some Bitcoin around $100,000. Now, obviously that's not going to be life-changing, and I'll share with you guys what a better move is than buying Bitcoin right now. I don't think it's very smart to be buying Bitcoin right now for multiple reasons. One of the main ones is obviously the stochastic RSI on the 4-hour is in overbought conditions. The relative strength index is at 66, near 70. And even if we break out to the upside, I think altcoins are going to do a lot better, and specific altcoins are going to outperform the rest of the market. But nonetheless, Bitcoin is following right along schedule. If you guys watched my previous video, I showed you guys this chart right here, which is the minor capitulation chart compared to the past, and the block since difficulty bottom. Right here, we transitioned from yellow to orange. And the last time that this happened, that was when we were rallying for the double top last bull run. The cycle before then, Bitcoin went even more parabolic, but right at the light orange phase is when we topped out, and we're nearing there. So we're getting very, very close to a market cycle top for Bitcoin. So even if we see a short-term pullback for Bitcoin, and let's say the RSI just starts to reset right now, or the stochastic RSI forms a bearish cross and comes down earlier, well, eventually I do think Bitcoin is going to break out to a new high. So it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when that happens for Bitcoin. Is it going to be within the next week or two, or will it be closer to Q3 and Q4 of this year? Because right now we're in Q2 of 2025. And so I do think Bitcoin has much further to the upside to go. And this is why we see whales like this guy right here boosting their long positions to over $1 billion. So James Wynn knows something, which is why he put in a 40x long for Bitcoin. That's a lot of leverage right there to risk $1 billion unless you know something is coming. What does he know? Well, if you have $1 billion just to risk and throw at the markets, you probably have a few billion elsewhere in like real estate, in cash, in bonds, and you're just playing around with the crypto market. So you have some very powerful friends. So as you guys already know, Gary Gensler stepped down before Donald Trump could fire him, and this guy, Paul Atkins, replaced him, and this is what he's saying.
I want to say that it is a new day at the SEC. I'm determined that we return to our core mission that Congress set for us more than 90 years ago. The SEC's three-part mission, as the chairman stated earlier, was enunciated by Congress in the Exchange Act, and that's investor protection, which is vital to our mission, holding accountable those who lie, cheat, and steal. Capital formation is also at the root of what we do, fostering a direct economical route for investors' capital to find its way to entrepreneurs and industry to create products and services. And the third core part of our mission is maintaining fair, orderly, and efficient markets. Congress calls on the Commission to ensure that our regulations balance costs and benefits, that they do not become too burdensome by adding needless friction to the marketplace, thereby undermining the capital formation that yields so much benefit. My time in public service and in the private sector has allowed me to see firsthand how regulations affect markets and investors. They can stoke innovation, facilitate investment goals, and create opportunities or burdens on businesses' ability to compete and to serve their customers. How we implement regulations at the SEC is crucial. It's one thing to write a regulation, quite another for it to achieve its intended goal. Regulation should be smart, effective, and appropriately tailored within the confines of our statutory authority. A key priority of my chairmanship will be to develop a rational regulatory framework for crypto asset markets that establishes clear rules of the road for the issuance, custody, and trading of crypto assets while continuing to discourage bad actors from violating the law. Clear rules of the road are necessary for investor protection against fraud. Policymaking will be done through notice and comment rulemaking, not through regulation by enforcement. The Commission will utilize its existing authorities to set fit-for-purpose standards for market participants. The Commission's enforcement approach will return to Congress's original intent, which is to police violations of these established obligations, particularly as they relate to fraud and manipulation. The SEC is returning rulemaking to regular order. Our comment periods will not be artificially short, and the public will have ample time to provide feedback. The SEC will also be sure to take into consideration how rules overlap and how regulatory burdens build, in keeping with our obligation to consider their costs and their benefits. There will be targeted, common sense reorganizations to come at the SEC. To start, I'm seeking approval from Congress to disband what's known as FinHub. Its innovation should be ingrained into the culture SEC-wide and not limited to a relatively small office. We've begun a process to review our technology infrastructure and our contractual obligations. So to close, we will work with our colleagues in the administration, especially other financial services regulators, and with Congress to bolster the economy and build on U.S. leadership of the global markets. This SEC will take every effort to ensure that the United States is the best and the most secure place in the world to invest and do business.
And so under Biden's administration, they were extremely hostile towards crypto. And regardless of macro market uncertainty with the Federal Reserve, interest rates, what they're doing with the effective federal funds rate, well, regulation is not just coming, it's here. David Sachs said stablecoin legislation is about to pass the Senate. And with a 60-29 vote in favor of the Genius Act, this shows that Congress wants clear rules of the road for crypto. So it's only a matter of time. Listen to what Kevin O'Leary is saying.
They're debating right now the Genius Act, which involves stablecoins. Here's what Elizabeth Warren said, and then I want to get your reaction on the other side, Kevin.
For the first time in American history, this bill will make our president, Donald Trump, the regulator of his own financial product.
Now, there has been bipartisan support for this, but that's the argument on the other side. What would you say to the senator?
Well, first of all, let's talk about Elizabeth Warren. She not only has Trump derangement syndrome, she has crypto derangement syndrome. That's a powerful cocktail of confusion for her. This bill has nothing to do with Trump. This is a digital payment system that establishes the U.S. dollar as a default currency around the world for price discovery on every commodity on earth. Why wouldn't she want that? Why wouldn't every American want that? This is the definition of what currency will be in digital payment systems. If we don't want it, the Chinese will do it with the yuan. You don't want that. This is a chance to move forward a technology that's incredibly productive for digital payment systems, large and small businesses alike. What she's doing right now is un-American. She's trying to tie this bill to Trump. It has nothing to do with meme coins, nothing to do with Bitcoin. There are worries, though,
about the family business and some of the properties and stable coins within some of those.
All is fair in love and war, in particularly politics, but this is completely deranged what she's doing. As we speak, she could stymie American technology and advancement on digital payment systems, which has nothing to do with Trump.
So we don't know if she actually feels that way or if she's getting paid behind the scenes, but there's nothing she can do to stop what's coming. And if we look at the Bitcoin price chart on the weekly, we can see that the stochastic RSI, well, the K line's at 100, the D line's at 89, so we haven't witnessed a bearish cross yet. So it reminds me similar to what happened back here during the last bull run cycle, right before we saw a minor correction and then the final peak in the bull run before we went into a bear market. So I think whether we push a little bit higher, like let's say we push to 110 or 120, I do think there would be a little pullback and then for us to see a blow off top for later this year and then we go into a bear market. Unless we see that pullback happen now, I still think there is a push higher and you have to be ready for it, because when that breakout takes place, retail are going to start flooding back into the market, guys. For example, if we go to trends.google.com and we type in Bitcoin and we sort based on the past 12 months, you can see that the interest is starting to tick up a little bit. Since April, it was at 29 out of 100. Now it's at 43, but it's far off from where it was between November of 2024. And even if we go over the past 5 years, it's at 31 out of 100 right now. So I don't think we're at the top until we start getting upwards of, 60, 70, or 80. As you can see in November 2024, we were 72 out of 100. Compare this back to 2021, these levels were all the way up at 100. And so we are starting to see a recovery in Bitcoin right here, but it's not coming from retail investors, guys. This is coming from institutional buys. Even Bitcoin's at an all-time high, but yet retail interest is at 30 out of 100. So this shows that retail still does not care until Bitcoin starts breaching above 110, 120. Then they're going to start coming back into the market, and then we're going to see Google Trends really start to rip to the upside. And if we search altcoins right here, you can see altcoins are at 10 out of 100. So no one really cares. Back in December, they were 58 out of 100. At the peak of the market in 2021, in May, it was at 100 out of 100. And then by the end of 2021, at the double top, it was at 77, 76. So the altcoins aren't going to peak out until this is upwards of well above 50 at least. And one of those altcoins that everyone's going to start putting money into, other than Dogecoin or Solana or Sui or Ethereum, is XRP. And XRP is sitting at $2.37 on the daily. If we look at the stochastic RSI right here, it's at 32 and 23 for the K line, the D line. We're still in a downtrend on the stochastic RSI. We saw a bearish cross right here. And so this is similar to what happened right around here between the end of August of 2017 until the beginning of September, when XRP saw this breakout from the low. The stochastic RSI experienced a bullish cross down here below 20, comes all the way up above 80, bearish cross, another bearish cross, the stochastic RSI resets, the price comes all the way back down within this zone of support right here at about 14, 15 cents, forms a bullish cross below 20 again, and then reverses back to the upside. So this is what we look for. So because we're in a downtrend on the stochastic RSI, I would want to see it come all the way down here below 20 and get as close to zero as possible for both the K line and the D line. We're at 32 and we're at 23. So yes, XRP could bobble around here for a while. It could even push higher if Bitcoin starts to break out, seeing a reversal on the stochastic RSI, but eventually I would want it to come back down below 20 to consider entering into XRP, because the risk to reward ratio in the middle of a range on the daily chart right here is just not there. There's just too much risk to the downside, because if XRP pulls back with Bitcoin, it could come all the way back down within this zone of support, similar to what happened here after August of 2017 until September. XRP dropped about 47%. So from the recent local high on this breakout of about $2.65 to pull back within the zone is roughly 20 to 30%. That's where I would want to accumulate more XRP, while the stochastic RSI would be down here below 20, and we would see where the relative strength index would be at that point. As you guys can see, the RSI doesn't need to be below 30 to get a good entry point. That's why we use confluence with the stochastic RSI, because on that pullback, it brought it back down to about 37 before it bounced on the relative strength index in the past. Right now, the RSI is at 53, so it's in the middle of a range. So we accumulate when the RSI is very, very close to 30 or below it, and the stochastic RSI is all the way down here below 20 on aggressive pullbacks in the market. Or we wait for breakouts and back tests of previous range highs, which in this case would be like $2.65 for XRP. That's the most recent high. So unless we clear that high and hold it as support, we could just see something similar to what we saw right here, which would be, washing machine price action for XRP before a sell-off to the downside with Bitcoin. So watch the stochastic RSI. If I just circle when we were down here below 20 for an extended period of time, it was on these pullbacks for XRP on the daily chart. And so we're almost there, but we're not there yet. Subscribe to the channel, and I'm going to keep covering this for you guys, and I'll point it out for you. Just like I pointed out right here when we were down below 20 for both the K line and the D line on the stochastic RSI, and the price was at $2.08. Ideally, we wanted to see it dip within the zone before breaking out, but you can't get too greedy to the downside. That's why we use these indicators. So if you plan on just holding XRP long term, then yeah, $2.37, it's not bad, and I think XRP will actually outperform Bitcoin the rest of this bull run cycle, and I'll explain why in a little bit on the Bitcoin dominance chart. But Canada ended nearly all of their retaliatory tariffs on the US, and we're seeing these other countries negotiate with the United States, causing less uncertainty through the trade war. Also, Robinhood is also acquiring Bitstamp, which is building a perpetual DEX on the XRP ledger, and Robinhood submitted an SEC proposal to regulate tokenized real-world assets, aiming to bring Wall Street on chain and unlock a $30 trillion market. Plus, Straits X launched its Singapore dollar pegged stablecoin XSDG on the XRP ledger. And so for the people wondering, should they accumulate Bitcoin or should they accumulate XRP or other crypto assets? Well, I thought this is a great post from Crypto Beast here on Twitter. Long-term Bitcoin always goes up. There's no doubt about it, but let's do some math right now just for fun. So let's say Bitcoin goes to $200,000 this cycle. He's saying that it won't. My price prediction for Bitcoin was up to 190K this cycle. So we'll see how this plays out, but let's assume that it gets to 200K. So one guy buys 1 million worth of Bitcoin at $20,000. Another guy buys 1 million worth at $100,000. So if Bitcoin hits 200K, congratulations. How much did each investor make? Well, the guy who bought 1 million at 20K, he got 50 Bitcoin. He made $9 million profit. While the guy who bought 1 million worth at 100K, he got 10 Bitcoin. He only made 1 million profit, which is only a 2x. So that's an $8 million difference, or 800% difference. So the initial amount was the same. So yes, it absolutely does matter when you get it, not what you buy, but when you buy it, and then also when you sell it. So right now is not the time to buy Bitcoin. If you think otherwise, you will never get rich, never. Because if all you have is $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, sure, buying Bitcoin the rest of this bull run cycle, you can maybe get a 2x out of it. If Bitcoin does insanely well and goes to 300K, maybe a 3x. But we all know that if Bitcoin does a 2x or a 3x, there's going to be altcoins that'll do a 4x, 5x, 10x, or more. And when we look at Bitcoin's dominance chart, it's at 64.29%. This shows how much of the total market cap of the industry Bitcoin has. Well, on the stochastic RSI, the K line is at 96, the D line is at 87. We're in overbought conditions. The relative strength index is at 71. And if we pull up the MACD right here, we can see we're the highest we have ever been. Eventually, we're going to see the bearish cross where the MACD line in blue crosses below the signal line in orange. And when that happens, Bitcoin's dominance will drop and we will start to see a massive amount of liquidity flow into alt season. Now, we don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but that's why we watch indicators to see when we're overbought or when we're oversold. And right now, we are overbought for Bitcoin's market cap dominance. The best time to accumulate Bitcoin was all the way down here when dominance was at like 38% and the stochastic RSI was below 20, the relative strength index was at 30, and look at the MACD. We were all the way down here right before we experienced a bullish cross well below the zero line. That's when it's smart to accumulate Bitcoin. So that's when I was accumulating Bitcoin around the bear market bottom. I actually waited until November or December to see how this was going to play out, but I was buying Bitcoin around $16,500. And also, if we look at Bitcoin to the US dollar compared to Total 2 on the left-hand side of the screen, we see that Bitcoin went through this massive cup and handle formation before the breakout right here at the end of October of 2024. So when that breakout took place, pushed Bitcoin upwards of 109, 110, and now we're seeing Bitcoin break out again. Whereas the altcoin market hasn't experienced that breakout. It's still going through the handle on this massive cup and handle formation. So in my opinion, if we see Bitcoin start to break out and then consolidate again before breaking out to the all-time high and then going into a bear market during like the last 1 to 3 months of the bull market cycle, when Bitcoin's dominance starts to drop, that, in my opinion, is when altcoins will start to make a move to a new all-time high. And I explained this to you guys in a previous video comparing Bitcoin to Ethereum. For example, when Bitcoin broke this descending resistance right here around the middle of April, we saw this consolidation on top of it as support before Bitcoin broke to the upside through this resistance, this zone of resistance, to hold it as support, which was support all the way from the 6th of November till it broke below it on the 24th of February with multiple points of contact. Then we look on the right-hand side of the screen, I was calling this out right here, and that was when I was entering in some longs for Ethereum right around this phase because Ethereum broke this descending resistance, was holding a tight range as support, and then we saw this massive liquidity injection happen for Ethereum, and guess what happened? It broke above this zone of resistance to now hold it as support. So what I think Ethereum is going through is what Bitcoin went through right here during this stage in the market cycle. And on the next breakout for Bitcoin, we're about to see Ethereum start to melt faces because look at where Bitcoin is right now relative to the high right here. Whereas the high for Ethereum right here, it's still well off of it. This high is about $4,000. Ethereum's at $2,500. So when Ethereum starts to make the move back up to this high right here, similar to what Bitcoin is doing right now, you guys better be ready for that because certain altcoins are going to absolutely explode. And if you want to know what those altcoins are, then our research team will be sharing them with you inside of Altcoin Pro University. For example, our research team posted GOAT on the 13th of October of 2024 when it was right at a penny, and since then it rallied to over $1, 5,000%. That's like turning $1,000 into over $50,000. Our team called Pendle at only a $16 million market cap, or 16 cents, back on February 18th of 2023, all the way back here, and since then it's rallied up over 4,000%. That's a 40x. It's like turning $1,000 into over $40,000. Our team also called BitTensor Tau September 15th, 2022, before the token was ever even launched. And since then, Tau has rallied over 2,000%. That's a 20x. Our team even said Solana is most likely to be one of the easiest trades next year, and this was posted December 29th, 2022, on the day that Solana bottomed out at around $8. And since then, Solana looks like it's up over 2,500%. That's a 25x. It's like turning $1,000 into over $25,000. The list goes on and on and on. Our team called Sui, Ondo, and even some of the biggest cult-based meme coins like MOG back in July 20th of 2023, the day that MOG launched. So if you want to learn how our team is finding these altcoins before they explode, we just launched Altcoin Pro University, where our research team gives you real-time altcoin picks with explosive potential for this bull run, along with 100+ expert curated classes crafted by industry experts to discover these gems yourself, on top of our live weekly calls every single week for in-depth crypto market analysis and daily updates. And that's just a fraction of what we offer inside of Altcoin Pro University through the link below. And although we make no guarantees because crypto is definitely risky, guys, this is only $97 a month or $970 a year. If you want to save $194, getting 2 months for free and unlock some exclusive bonuses, just go through the link in the description below. Get in right now. Watch the 26-minute video covering everything that Altcoin Pro University offers to help you become the first millionaire in your family tree, if that's a goal of yours. And you can get started through the link in the description below right now, or you can go to bullrunners.com to take advantage of the bonuses we're giving you before they expire. Everyone is loving the community. They're loving the education. They're getting access to real-time altcoin picks first before we ever make videos about them. So click the link in the description below, watch the video, and I'll see you on the inside.
Well, we go on, we go from the highest highs to the canyons fall. The great awakening's calling you.
My fellow Americans and time-traveling patriots, where we go one, we go all together. One nation, under God,